How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to Adidas Forum Focus. I'm excited to be here tonight during NYC by Design Week. To give you a little bit of context on who I am, you're probably wondering, like, who is this dude? Who gave him a microphone? My name is Alex Mayland. I'm a co-founder of a new media startup and publication called MAEKAN. And in short, MAEKAN's a storytelling platform. We're journalists, so we create stories for everything from art, music, fashion, and design, all the way up to everything from tech, business, food, travel, so on and so forth. Both my partner and I used to work at Hypebeast for many years, and so this is kind of our first foray into our own company. But enough about me. The real reason we're really here is to talk to my friend Marc. And I think a lot of you guys here probably know Marc, and if you don't know him by name, I'm sure you've encountered his work in some way, shape, or form over the last few years. But Marc is the Vice President and Creative Director of Adidas, and his work is incredible. It spans everything from industrial design all the way into categories like sportswear, especially footwear, and also streetwear. So, yeah, if you guys could give a warm welcome to Marc Dolce. Thank you. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to have a kind of open conversation. The goal really, and this is the one thing, if you don't hear anything else tonight, really the main goal of tonight is we want you guys to leave with just this nugget of creative inspiration. So if you don't hear anything else, if you don't care about any of our bios or anything else, the goal is that you guys would leave here more inspired to go out and create, more inspired to go out and build something, and just more empowered to sort of have that creative identity. So throughout the night, what we're going to do is we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and you guys can submit questions on Twitter. So just tag Adidas NYC, and you can send a question, and then actually towards the end, they're going to go to my phone. I'm going to get a text, and we'll open up some of those questions. I'll ask them, and Marc will answer them. And then also afterwards, guys, Marc's going to stick around. He's going to shake some hands, meet people, and he'll also be doing some sketching as well, which is really cool to watch. So before we get to all that stuff, Marc, let's just dive right in.
Sure.
What do you do for a living? What's your role?
So my job for Adidas is to be a creative director and really to imagine the future. It's an opportunity to work with an amazing team of people and to really start to imagine and think about where we can be in the future, from sport, from science, and to really help athletes and consumers be better in their life, in their sport, and in their game.
Cool. What's your background? Like, give us a little bit of info on sort of where you come from. What's your history in the industry, just to frame up the rest of the talk.
So what's great is, I'm back in my hometown. I lived in Portland for 10 years, but coming back to New York is like an amazing opportunity to reconnect. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I went to Pratt Institute. I studied industrial design. And as I went to college, it was really about focusing on transportation. Like, how can I find ways to create better product solutions? And that was really essentially through cars, doing transportation design. But then I found this ability for me to take what I really loved was, how do I take fashion and design and mix that together? How do I use art and use that to really help and make people's lives better through product solutions that we could do? And so I basically got into footwear design as an intern, and from there on, it was an amazing way for me to blend two things that I was really passionate about, art and sport, put those together and really find a way that I can help athletes become better.
What does your day-to-day look like right now?
My day, what's great is that I try to get myself out of a lot of meetings. That's the one thing you'll notice is your schedule will become incredibly absorbed with people wanting to ask you questions and get involved. What I love to do is I love to interact and engage with the team. My team is, made up of a diverse group of people from all different types of backgrounds. Graphic design, fashion design, artists, conceptual designers, digital designers, and we just come into the work every day and we start our morning as a team huddle, kind of like this. We just kind of talk about what's happening, what we saw the day before, And then we start to build on that. It's like, what did we see yesterday that we thought was amazing? And what are the ideas that we can then build upon and work upon, that really can start pushing us forward? And, I feel very fortunate to be surrounded by people that are better than I am. I think that's the best part about being, a leader. You really get to empower the ones around you to hear their ideas, the ones that are more connected to consumers, and grow with them and watch the things and insights that they have that inspire me. Every day I walk into the office and I'm like shocked and surprised by the sketches, the ideas, the apparel, the footwear that the team had worked on. It's incredible.
Let's talk a little bit about this word creator, right? Because I don't know, like when I was walking up on the building, it's plastered outside of Fifth. Adidas uses it quite a bit, but I feel like a lot of times the word creativity or even creator, they're very different, although they're grouped together. And also the other kind of caveat is that they're used a lot in like marketing lingo, but I'm interested to hear from you. What do you actually define as a creator?
For me, everyone has the ability to be creative. And I think when you grow up as a child, like you have this really amazing ability to ideate and come up with ideas. You're dreaming constantly as a child. And there's a moment in time where someone will come to you and say, that's not a good idea, or they'll block you. Don't go down that career path. You don't want to be an artist. You don't want to be a starving artist. I think what I would want to do is really try to be able to unlock that creativity in people. Like open up people's imaginations again and make them start dreaming. And I think, like you have an amazing opportunity in front of you is, to really look at what you're doing and make sure you love and you're passionate about what you do every day. And if you're not, like it's an opportunity for you to stop and take a pause and look at ways that you can bring that creativity back. So as a creator, it's like, it's a great question, but it's like, how can we unlock that creativity in everyone else out there?
Right. And how are you guys, with what you're doing in Brooklyn and you're forming this really cool team? I mean, how do you guys work, on the day to day? I mean, how do you approach being truly creative and not just creative in the sense of sort of recycling existing ideas?
I think creators, they forge their own paths. Like we're looking for people that step out, that are different. We're looking for creativity that shows up in sport and in design. We're looking for people that want to make a difference when they're on the pitch while they're playing soccer or while they're being creative in whatever endeavor they're doing. But it's really about creators forging their own paths. It's about bringing people together like ourselves and like really kind of like vibing off each other. And creators want to be together. They want to be part of a collective. They want to be of something bigger. And I think, if you're, the other part would be is like, you just never stop. You never stop thinking or dreaming. Like, you're constantly awake and alive and, you can have ideas at any moment in the day. And, and as a designer, you're a work in progress. I constantly look at creativity as like when you put your product on a shelf, you always can see something you could do something different. And as humans, we're not perfect. So like, why should our products be perfect? Like the products that we do are constantly a work in progress. And it's just a moment in time. You're really just capturing a moment in time with your work. And, and you can have an idea today, but that idea could really evolve to something different tomorrow.
Do you, can you guys hear me okay? Sorry. You mentioned work in progress. And I think that's interesting because I think work in progress kind of hints at it's not always perfect, right? And there's the idea nowadays, especially with social media and especially with just being able to see so much work from everybody else, that your shit always has to be on point. You know what I mean? So how do you approach adversity and how do you approach failure and really to yourself and to your own identity? How do you decide this is a good idea or this is not a good idea, or is there even such a thing as that?
Yeah, I like what you said. I like the idea of like, sometimes you fail, and I think that's something that's really important. If you're not failing, you're not innovating. If you're not failing, you're not learning from your mistakes. And sometimes it's important that you go through this process and you get out of your comfort zone, that you don't always do what makes you feel comfortable, but you try to like do things that make you feel uncomfortable and the people around you. It's sometimes when you put something out there, it's like you're not sure about it, but sometimes it needs to be validated. But I don't think it needs to be perfect. I think it should be more instinctual. It should be more a gut reaction, and it should be more of a gesture of what you would like to do and show an intent.
But how do you do that nowadays given the immediacy of like visibility, right? Like, how do you create things in silence? How do you create things, under wraps? And what's the balance of, I guess, showing your work versus just doing things like under wraps just for your own experimentation, just to hone your own craft?
Yeah, I think it's, the one thing that I would say as with the design team and people that I work with, it's great to see the process. It's just the best concepts are the ones that never make it to, the final sample. It's the one that, you pick out of the waste paper basket and you're like, let me see what you were working on earlier. And you realize there's something really interesting there.
And how often does that happen with you?
It happens all the time. It's like, it's great because, sometimes you're just not confident. It's all about building confidence in the work that you do. And sometimes you just need somebody to come over and say, this is an amazing idea. And so you just need somebody to support you. And really that's the great part about working in a team. Like, I really try to give the team an opportunity to really create and really create without any sort of limitations. And some of the ideas like make me take a step back and I'm like, wow. And sometimes I'm like, that's crazy. And, the ones that are crazy, the ones that are different and that are going to be something unique. And those are the ones that we go after. It's amazing.
Let's talk about, collaboration a little bit. That word I think is interesting. What are some of the ways that you guys work collaboratively, in your lab or with your team? I mean, I can imagine that there's sort of a lot of systems in place to work with people, but how do you actually just get to the nitty gritty of the good stuff and just working with people, getting the best from your team and putting out something awesome?
Yeah. When I first came in the industry, the first thing I would see is that you want to work in isolation. You feel like you have this great idea, you do this sketch, and you bring it and you show it at the final design review and you make it an unveiling. And it's kind of cool because then you get to surprise everybody. But when you do that, you're not building off anybody else's ideas. And I think the best part about collaboration is really working inside of a team. And the way we set it up is just using WhatsApp, or some of the digital tools that you have that on every day. You just create a group, get people that, that are like-minded or even sometimes that aren't like-minded. So you get different opinions and different ideas. And, just share your work, share the work in progress, and then let everyone else kind of comment and give you feedback on it. I think that's the best thing I would say is be more open, feel free to show your work in an early stage, even if it's a work in progress. Things don't have to be finished. And sometimes those are the best ideas. Work with other people, co-create with them. And then, sometimes it's even put down a sketch and ask somebody else to take it over. And I think that's a really nice way that we work is that, we hack each other's work. It's like, graffiti, you tag on the wall and then somebody else is going to come in and they're going to tag on top of that. It's almost that approach of in design, allow you to do something and then see what else somebody else could do to add on to that to make it better.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember when we were first starting at Hypebeast, it was very guerrilla style, right? I think some of the best ideas are made when you're not really planning to do it, or some of the best work comes out of the non-structured environments, right? Especially when you're starting, when Hypebeast was first starting, it was 4 or 5 guys, around a table trying to figure out how to do media, new media, but it wasn't ever a thing. And sometimes you just have to throw ideas out there, and sometimes they fall, and a lot of times they're not really good, but that's the process. That's the iterative process of getting to something that is good and it does stick and does hold its weight,
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you don't want to refine it to a level where it becomes too polished. I think, when you see things and if you look at the way you dress, you look at the denim, you look at any part of sport, you look at products that we do, you look at the way, materials wear over time, especially through sport. You can see the way they age as the patinas. It has this, beautiful worn-in feel. I think there's something really natural and beautiful about that. And I think it's great to get back to that level of craft.
How you mentioned WhatsApp and you mentioned some of these digital tools. I'm sure people use Slack, or I don't know, if you live in Asia, you probably use Line or WeChat or something. How different was working or collaborating back when you first started, which was, when was that? That was
20 years ago.
20 years. It's a long time. You're aging yourself now. No, so how different was like working and collaborating then versus now? And do you think it's easier, better, worse? Like, what's your?
I mean, that was back in the day. We didn't have computers and fax. Come on, like, like we're going way back there. You're really making me feel old. I think before it was about constant information. It was like, you know, getting information from any source you can, being in the streets, going out on market travel. And I think now it's about really not worrying about what other people are doing, but really you know, what do we want to do? And I think that's really been the biggest shift and change that I've seen. It's not about going to different cities to really get an understanding. It's like you're bringing the people into us, and we're co-creating with them in our space, connecting to the community, inviting them in, working with them, building ideas with them. And I think that's been the biggest shift that I've seen in with our brand. I wouldn't say the industry, I'd say for our brand.
Yeah. You talked about like kind of being hungry and just going and getting it right. It's so easy to go online and like log in, go to Pinterest, get an idea, go to Google Images or Tumblr or whatever. Where are you going now for sources of inspiration that you feel is actually new and not just like a mood board that somebody else has put together?
I mean, being based in New York, it's a key city for the brand. It's a key city for the world. It's where everything happens. You know, I use New York City as my playground. It's and once I step out the doors from my house or from the office, it's like I have everything at my fingertips. I'm connecting to different neighborhoods, different diversity, different people, different ideas. And, you know, everything is at my fingertips. And, you know, I feel very fortunate to be based in New York. You know, the company has over 500 designers based in Herzo, Japan, Portland. And, you know, they have to come to New York to, you know, kind of understand the vibe, the culture in the city. But I have that every day. And so, you know, I feel very fortunate that I can, you know, be able to be immersed into the culture and into the city and to be able to use that. You know, I just crave information. Like, I'm not going to lie, you know, like, it's like, I want to see everything. I want to feel everything that's happening. And it's just like, it's just a constant stream of information coming in.
Yeah. What if you're not in like a New York though? Like, what if you're in, I don't know, like, where is somewhere random? Kansas or Tampa? I don't know. Like, what if you're not in a hub that feels like this every single day as soon as you step foot out your door? Like, what would you say to a kid that's, you know, in a random city that doesn't have that at his disposal?
The biggest thing I would say is don't look at what other people are doing, but define your own path. I mean, it's so true of not trying to emulate. And I think that's what this industry is looking for. And I think that's what's been amazing for our brand. Adidas is really kind of just set out and did what they felt like was right. And you know, you start to see, you know, us by forging our own path. It's not worrying about what anybody else is doing, but we're really trying to drive our own perspective and how we feel like we can work with athletes and find a way to make them better, you know? So
let's talk about that a little bit, the kind of shifting back to the brand maybe. From an Adidas side and from an innovation side, what are some of the projects you're working on at the moment, and how are you making sure that Adidas kind of as a whole is pushing the limits and it's this big juggernaut that it's still innovating?
I think like with any brand, it's, you know, you have the amazing opportunity. And I think for us at Adidas right now, we're really trying to align this creative vision that we have to the bigger business opportunities. For me, like, I'm focusing, you know, as far out as 2022, you know, I'm thinking way out, and we're thinking of really exploratory concepts. If you want to innovate, you can't innovate on a calendar. You can't innovate with a process. You have to innovate the calendar and you have to innovate the process. And I think there's, you know, when you go into any project that we're given or we're looking to take on, it's really about finding new ways of doing that and not doing it in a formulaic way of starting in the same place and going through the same formula. And it's really about finding new ways to innovate. And I really love the way the brand is set up with our ethos, the future craft. It's focused on the future, but it's like it's obsessed with craft. And you can see from the product that I'm wearing here, you know, Future Craft 4D. It's an amazing opportunity to see 3D printed shoes in a completely new way of working with partners. And I think that's the best part is like we've connected with, you know, some of the best in other industries to find ways for them to help us, you know, really find ways to innovate and evolve. And I think this is an amazing example of that.
Yeah, can you talk about Future Craft a little bit? Like if people here don't know what it is, maybe like
so
riff on that a bit?
Future Craft, like I said, is really thinking about the future. It's like finding new ways that we can connect, and that's through product, it's through people, and it's through experiences. Future Craft isn't just a product ethos, but it's something much deeper. And what we want to do is find new ways that we can connect and we want to engage. It's digital, it's sports science. There's so many different levels that you can look at it. And then there's like the craft element. It's like really getting back to finding products that are crafted, getting that classic craft details, built back in, and looking at other partners that we can build and work with. And with innovation, there's so many great things happening right now with eco innovation and sport innovation. We're just starting to scratch the surface, and like the future is really bright.
How much of the innovation curve at the brand level is tied inherently to new technologies, or, it's tied to 3D printing, or it's tied to knitted uppers, versus how much maybe is just like raw, pure ideation and just like nuggets of, good info?
I think you could see what's happening. There's definitely a shift in the market. There's definitely a movement that's happening with our brand, and you can see the excitement happening with consumers. I think what we're doing is we found an amazing way to really collaborate with consumers to find ways that we can innovate for them in their life, in their game.
I want to kind of talk about like New York a little bit more. You referenced it earlier, but the idea that like you're from New York, New York's like your hub, and you're also here and you're like at the brand level leading that creative charge. What is the city of New York, or I guess even the community that you're establishing now in Brooklyn, how important is that community to the creative process?
The community in Brooklyn is amazing. If I look at Brooklyn, it's like the Silicon Valley for art and design. Like, so many things popping up within the city and around. We're really starting to build this open source approach to the way we work. We're not putting walls up around us. We're really inviting people to come in and to collaborate with us. And, being based in New York, there's so many different local schools, colleges, and designers that, want to be a part of the brand. It's a great way for us to build relationships with them. It's all about relationships.
Yeah. So regarding kind of schools and next generation, what are you guys looking for from a next generation of like hiring side? What do you guys look for in talent?
For me, as I look at the next generation of talent, it's really people that are change agents. I kind of feel like, that's kind of what my role is to be a change agent, to provoke, to think differently, to think about how we can change the industry, but also, look at growing the brand. And being based in New York, with us being the Brooklyn farm, is an opportunity to also grow and develop talent. It's looking at the diversity. We have an amazing team, and one of the hires we have is a 17-year-old high school kid. He's based in Jersey, takes an hour-and-a-half commute every day to work. But, I found him, a year ago, and I asked him for his portfolio and his resume, and he's like, I've never worked anywhere. I'm in high school. I'm like, wow, you're in high school? Like, the work you're doing right now, I want to bring you on. And that was hard. You think about it, like, how do I take a 16-year-old kid from Jersey and bring him to Brooklyn every day? And so, I built a relationship with his mom and dad, and, and now I'm really excited to be able to be his mentor, and watching him grow and flourish within the team. He's going to Parsons next year. Really exciting future for him. And for me, honestly, it just comes down to that. It comes down to changing people's lives. I get goosebumps just talking about it, because, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to it's about giving back to that next generation. It's not about what I can do, but it's like, how can I empower them and to watch them grow? And that to me is the most exciting part of what I could do, is really focusing on changing someone's life, giving them an opportunity, showing them a path forward, and then giving them the opportunity to come work with us. And, and not everyone can come work with us, but, we really try to connect with people through social media and different channels. And, and this is a great example of it, just by getting to speak to you. I appreciate your time for coming out, but, I get as much energy from you that you do from me. So this is a great way for us to connect. And I think, we'd love to do more of this.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny. Marc and I were talking backstage before we came up here, And we were like, man, we're really close to you guys. Like, this is a really tight venue. And I think I was saying that, and Marc was like, no, that's what I want. Like, it's better that it's a smaller venue because you can actually, communicate more one-to-one than if it was like 500 or 1,000 people. And I think people in creative roles like yourself and at other companies and around the world at agency level, wherever it is, I think there needs to be more of that change agent mentality, because you have a lot of people at organizations who basically are protecting, they're always insulating themselves. They're trying to stay at the top. They're trying to coast, and there needs to be more people that are actively going out and looking to keep that creative cycle going and keep that next generation kind of flourishing, I guess you could say. I remember I had one of my mentors growing up always told me that the best leaders always lead in a way that if they exited the picture, or if, they were no longer there overnight, everything would be fine. Everything would actually just keep going. And I think that's really important, that a lot of people aren't good at doing. They're not good at, bringing people along for the process.
Yeah.
How do you do that though, day to day? I mean, you're bringing a kid in high school, no work experience, no industry experience. There's got to be a lot of struggles in that, in getting them up to speed and getting them proficient.
Yeah, I mean, Nigel is an amazing talent, and for him, it's like we just went through a design review today with him, and just looking at his work and his sketches, it's like sometimes I have to take a step back and look at how far he's progressed and what he's able to do. I mean, thinking about his future ahead of him, it's so amazing that, he's at that level. It's he's like a high school phenom, and
yeah.
I can't imagine what he's going to do once he gets an understanding and an education. And I think, that's what's really great about it, is that, he now has this opportunity to get a scholarship, go to college, and, and for us to continue the relationship and continue building and working with him.
And how much of your specific time is spent working with him daily, or it's people within your team, or?
The way we look at it is, it's like a team. It's like a football team. Once you step out onto the pitch, we're all equal. It's not about job titles. It's not about roles or responsibilities. But when we get out on the creative floor, we're all equal. We all work collaboratively. We work in an amazing way of constantly building off of each other and vibing off of each other, and and just pushing each other. I think that's the biggest thing that I could say, and it's an amazing atmosphere and environment where you just constantly wanting to partner with somebody, see their idea, and think about how you can help them and make that better. And I think that's really what we've done, is set up a team environment unlike anything I've ever experienced in my career.
How much of your background in sport, your love of sport, plays into the way that you manage a team, or the way that you work inside of a creative team?
Yeah, I mean, I played high school football, hockey, baseball. I played soccer. I played every sport you can imagine. For me, that growing up, practice was, practice. It's a funny thing, you can talk about practice.
Yeah.
It's only if it's practice. But, the practice part is really what builds your confidence, your creativity, and the collaboration. And then, it allows the team, when it comes to the stage where they get to present their work in front of the leadership, is I can take a step back, and now I can allow the team to speak upon their work versus me speaking about their work. And I think that's something that's really good, is empowering them when leadership teams come through, for the individual designers to be able to have a voice. And I think that's the biggest thing I could say is, as a leader, allow your team to have a voice.
Yeah. I just got the 5-minute mark here, but before we round it out, I do want to kind of pair this, because we were talking about this earlier. I've been feeling this kind of pressure of, it feels like a lot of times right now there's this pressure to create things, and have that instant success, have that instant accolade, have that moment where you're maybe you're a 23-year-old kid and all of a sudden you're at the top instantly. But a lot of people miss the whole, behind the scenes. It's you're just seeing somebody's highlight reel. You're not seeing the day-to-day, right? And you're not seeing that decade or two before, for somebody like a Marc or other people, that they paid their dues and they were grinding it out for a long time, and it took them, 10,000 hours or whatever to hone their craft so well. So kind of to counteract the Nigel story, like what would you say to somebody who's feeling that now, who's feeling like, man, nothing's catching, I'm not getting traction, nobody likes what I'm doing, nobody's respecting me, nobody sees it, and they're feeling almost counterproductive or counter-motivated, not motivated.
I mean, I think that's the biggest, as a designer, you kind of get crushed by the teams that ask you to design something that they've seen similar, or you have a team that maybe can't imagine the future, and so you sometimes feel like you're alone. And I think the best thing to do is like really try to find and get people to believe in your vision. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, put yourself out there. Like put yourself out there and not feel uncomfortable about doing that. I actually interviewed somebody today, and he came in and he talked about, this constant struggle of not being able to do what he loves at work. And then he does it at home. And, he opened up his bag and it was just like all these amazing ideas. I'm like, have you shown your team this? And he's like, no. He's like, I just do this at home. And I'm like, but this is like so amazing. Like, this is so great. Like, I'm like, I told him like tomorrow, like, I want you to take this, I know you're interviewing with us, but I want you to go back to your team. I want you to open that bag and I want to see, and I want you to tell me about the reaction you get. So I'm curious to see tomorrow when Cole goes back to work, like what kind of reaction he gets, because I was blown away. And I think most of the time, like you do in your job what, you're told to do, and you don't kind of go outside of that zone. And I think it's what you're passionate about, what you take home with you is the work that that keeps you feeling creative. And I think, use that in your day. And if that's not the role that's meant for you, then find a role that is meant for you. And
creativity takes time. Sometimes it takes time. A lot of times it takes time, right? I mean, it doesn't always just happen, right? I think that idea of the right timing and you even just personally being ready to sort of like harness your own creativity a lot of times, it takes hours, man.
It's all about getting your confidence. It's like confidence in game and confidence in sport, confidence in life.
Right.
You want to feel confident in who you are, and I think that's really about unlocking that imagination and the ability for you to then create.
Totally. I want to open up a couple questions. I think I've probably been getting some. There's a couple of good ones in here too. This one actually sort of segues in from what we were talking about, but let's see here.
Uh-oh, he's picking the hard ones.
There's some good ones in here. Okay, this is an interesting one. What influence does #WhatIf creations on social media have on the commercial production of product? So essentially, when people, mock up those sneakers and they mock up those shoes, just for fun, and they're on social media, does the brand actually look at that?
Absolutely. And it's crazy. It's like, almost feels like that question was set up for me, but, honestly, that's how I find most of my design talent. I spoke to a recruiter earlier in the week, and it's through, hashtags and people reaching out to me and, through social media, and for me to then get a chance to see their work. But the what if, concept of like people being able to co-create with us and to me is a humbling experience, because, you have people out there that love the brand, that are passionate about Adidas, and it's great to see them, recreate, icons that they believe, could be the future. So for the what if hashtag, I actually hired, Federico. And so Federico, other known as Embroidered or Embroidered, on Instagram, was like, doing what if, for the last, couple of years. And I met him a year ago, we connected, and then we hired him a couple weeks ago. So, it's amazing that you can actually use the hashtags and like see what other people are doing, and like his creativity was amazing. So I wanted to see, how he works with us, and he's been great.
How about this one? With all the information accessible today, how do you filter out the crazy ideas that have legs versus the ones that are just noise?
Yeah, the crazy ones are the ones that, that are the ones that are going to make you feel uncomfortable. And I think that's the ones you have to really take a deeper look on. But then it's really about editing and the simplification of the design process. And, I think that's something like, it's not about being simple, but it's about what is the products that are actually those change agents, what are the ones that are going to provoke a new shape, a new last, a new form, a new silhouette in apparel? Like, what are the ones that are redefining the modern look of sport? Those are the ones that you naturally want to gravitate to, but it's the ones that also make you feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. Actually, this kind of segues into the next question from somebody, that says, how do you stop other designers from copying your look, or design, as it appears that many major shoemakers are actually going for things like an all knit look, etc.?
It's always a flattering experience when you see someone else, find your work appealing and that they want to, use that. But for us, it's not about thinking about what we're doing in the current day, but it's, we're working 2-3 years out. So, we're already on to the next thing. And it's exciting if they see something that we did and they want to, riff off that.
Right. But you're not looking at the past.
No, we're not, the past definitely does influence the future. Coming to this brand, it's the original sports brand. It has an amazing heritage and DNA. I can get lost in the archive sitting there for hours. I think the past has an influence. It shapes the way in which we move to the future. But I think it's, for us as we create, it's about using our past in a way which we can then take and find a modern approach to it.
I'm going to run through a couple more here. For Marc, is there any designers that came before you that influenced your design aesthetic, i.e. a Dieter Rams or a Steve Jobs?
I think absolutely. My creativity is inspired by everyone around me. And, there's some of the classic great designers of the past that definitely had an influence on me. But it's really about today's culture and what's happening right now. And for me, it's being in the present and not, focus so much on the past.
What are some of the ways that your brand is creating unique stories that make you stand apart from your competitors?
I think we're telling stories that are real, honest, and authentic. I think that we're not creating stories and we're not talking to consumers, but we invite them to be part of the journey with us. For me, calling all creators and telling them that we're here to create is an amazing stance as a company to say we're asking everyone for your ideas to come in and to partner with us and to find ways that we can leverage your ideas and then talk back. It's not about us giving you a prefabricated story, but it's really about inviting you in and co-creating with us.
So it's like that authenticity, right?
Yeah.
You can tell a lot of brand stories, but it has to have that core of actually being something that's real. And
the big way I look at it is it's about being born from culture. It comes from the culture. We're not dictating the culture. The culture is dictated to us, and so I think that's a good way of explaining it.
Yeah. There is a lot of noise. I think one of the questions said that, right? There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people telling a lot of stories today, but I think that, you can really tell the ones that are born from something that's true, born from something that actually is taking place, on the 9 to 5 at the headquarters. And it's not just, built on some, agency hours, copywriter.
There was a story that I remember that we did within American football, and it was these guys that run in the fields and chase rabbits, and just try to catch a rabbit. And if you're an American football player, whether you're in high school, college, or professional, there's a true insight that comes from that of this is what these guys do. They're hired to catch the rabbits in these fields. But in order to get them, it's it requires an amazing amount of mobility and speed. And so for me, it was a great way of looking at something that is true and authentic, and then to be able to then talk back to the people that know. It's about sport code. It's about DNA. If you're from that sport, you come from that, the suntan line that you're going to get if you're in certain sports, that maybe other people won't recognize. if you play soccer, if you play volleyball. There's some things that you have, you know, scars and markings that show that, you know, you're authentic to that sport.
Right.
It's not fake.
Right. Totally.
This is what happens in the Maker Lab.
Yeah, right. The scars of creativity.
The scars of creativity.
The war scars from being in the lab and building. Okay, one or two more questions here that I just want to go over. This one, we kind of talked about this, but I think it'd be good to sort of maybe end cap everything here. For someone who is interested in working under your direction, what are you looking for in new designers who are now entering the industry?
I think this is the most common question that I get. And honestly, it's very simple. Honestly, it's show me your process, show me how you got an insight and how you got an idea, and show me a way that you feel like you can help, that product, you know, change someone's life. And then that's through sport or through life. It's, you know, connect to the culture, show me something that's creative that I haven't seen before. Give me that feeling like, you know, of like the butterflies that like make me say, damn, I wish I would have created that. And, you know, show me something that, you know, is fresh and new. And don't worry about what other people are doing. Don't make it feel, you know, staged, and, you know, keep it true to who you are. And I think that authenticity comes through in your work, and sometimes it takes some time, but sometimes it could be, you know, you get somebody, a 17-year-old designer that has that just natural ability, that shows you something that you've never seen before. So.
And what if, maybe just to round things out, what if you're the type of person who you want to work in a creative company, but actually you're not a designer, right? Like you don't have the hard skill of, you know, catting up files, or you're not a photographer, you don't know how to use the devices, but you have ideas in your head, and you have like this sort of inherent zeal to like create something. Is there a place for you?
I think if you have an imagination, I think you're a creator. I think if you have ideas, you can partner with other people that can express your ideas. You know, and I think that's been the best part of my career, is finding people that aren't necessarily designers, but that have amazing ideas, and that we can build and work on things together. So I think as you look at us as a creator brand, the one thing I would want you to walk away from is really like, if you have an imagination, we really want you to be part of the brand, and we invite you in to look at the opportunities that we have. I know I still have one opportunity left as an assistant, you know, concept creator. You know, if there's something there, I'd love to meet you.
Cool. I feel good, man. I feel like we touched on a lot of the stuff we wanted to talk about tonight.
Yeah. It's great.
Thank you guys for coming out. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.